Good morning and welcome back to Rising. We are so happy to see you on this kind of chilly
but
fall
sunny
Thursday day.
Yeah, the sun's out though. I know you like that.
I'm tired. How about you?
I'm rallying, getting it together.
We're both really tired. I stayed up way too late. I was doing work, so it wasn't like a fun thing, but didn't get enough sleep.
You know what? Every time I have one of those late nights, then I also have a 4-year-old, so it's like she'll energy suck. Like she'll be like, "No, you're playing with me." So one of those days, like
I'm
we're
just
in the
warning
same
everybody,
kind of.
my brain is not working, but we'll do our best.
Coming up on Rising, I'll be discussing how a DHS advisor is saying that ICE will now attend the Super Bowl, where Bad Bunny is set to headline.
I still don't know who that is, but additionally, Vice President J.D. Vance has revealed layoffs are imminent if the government stays shut down. Oh no, not that.
And President Trump is catching heat from across the political spectrum for a recent executive order on the defending of Qatar. But first, Robby, what's on your radar today?
Yes, let's get to it. Joe Rogan. He may be America's most useful bellwether. So goes Joe, so goes the nation. Seriously, it behooves us to listen to this man, the legend, the podcasting giant, and take some cues from him. His political instincts are closely aligned with millions of people who feel alienated from the establishment and the elite culture of both parties. Rogan was one of the first major independent media personalities to take the Bernie Sanders phenomenon seriously in 2016. During COVID, he was a walking, talking manifestation of populist dissatisfaction with elite lockdowns, mandates, and those sorts of things. And in 2024, his endorsement of Trump was a sign of the times, a sign that young people, working class people, male minorities, etc., were leaning away from the Democratic Party and toward Trump. Now, lately, he's expressed disappointment with some of Trump's policies, including mass deportation, not of violent criminals, but of absolutely anyone who's in the country illegally. He's also objected to aspects of our foreign policy, which he believes is too deferential to Israel. My bottom line is this. When Rogan has a take, we should listen, because he's not afraid to disagree with his side. In fact, he doesn't really have a side. So I think it matters that he's absolutely disgusted by the response of many people to the murder of conservative media giant Charlie Kirk. Let's watch.
I don't think some of the things he said he should have said, but the fact that people were cheering when he died, normal people, housewives, moms, like people working at banks, people working at various industries, celebrating a man getting shot in front of his kids, in the front of the whole world.
That's
like,
evil.
What the is wrong with us?
Yeah, and it's just really weird now.
It's really weird, and it's celebrated to hate people. And that's the weird part. And most of us know that that's wrong.
Those remarks came during his discussion this week with the Red Clay Straws. It's a country band. Rogan went on to clarify he was talking specifically about the left's response. Here's a bit more.
Whether that person's on the left or the right, they just got shot in front of the whole world. It's not a thing to celebrate ever. And especially when you're seeing people on the left that are supposed to be progressives. These are supposed to be the kind, compassionate, inclusive people that are celebrating gun violence, public execution. Like, that's insane. That's a public assassination. That's insane.
Rogan speaks for a great many people who are just plain gobsmacked by the left's capacity for excusing violence, which was evident this week after the death of Assata Shakur, a well-known leftist radical and convicted cop killer whose poetry was praised by those mourning her passing. Kirk, on the other hand, is not being remembered fondly by the left, which is, of course, their right. But when you have kinder things to say about an actual killer than you do about someone who merely used provocative language, I think that communicates something about your priorities. And guess what? The rest of us are noticing. We are noticing which of our countrymen condemn violence in all its forms, no matter who it targets. We are noticing who is making excuses for it, who would probably applaud it if it happened to us. And that is an ugly thought. So, Lindsey, we used to kind of cover the Joe Rogan show, spectate the Joe Rogan show every day on Rising. Haven't done it in a while. I haven't had any of his clips kind of cross my social media feed, which is usually how I check in with what he's saying. So I thought it was notable that I did see this one of him talking about his reaction to seeing people on the left. His read of the situation is people on the left excusing violence toward Charlie Kirk and how that's affecting him. And you've brought up, and this is true, that he's not on board or in love with everything Trump is doing. So that's maybe push him back toward the Democratic side. But then again, if you have, this is the problem for Democrats, is the widespread perception that normal, ordinary people have with them having a proclivity for violence, the far left.
Yeah, and I think what Joe Rogan said is true. I mean, he said, I don't agree with everything Charlie Kirk said, but did you see the way that he was killed? That you should abhor that. And I think that anybody who's been in Democratic leadership over this time, that the unfortunate assassination of Charlie Kirk, has been very vocal about condemning this violence. I think that has to be clear. Even with Ta-Nehisi Coates, who we debated about the other day, he said, I hate to see this happen. That's terrible. So I think that has to be the first and foremost thing coming out of anyone's mouth. And then there's your ability to critique is part of what Charlie Kirk lived and stood for. So he would be able to critique people like George Floyd and Derek Chauvin, even though a lot of the world, we saw the whole world rally around the similar cause in that instance, saying that it was police going too far. He took an alternative side, and he's allowed to do that. He still was celebrated for having that perspective. You agree with him on many things, but maybe not that one instance. And I think that's what we have to allow for, and people have to continue to say and call out what Joe Rogan did. I think when we talk about Democratic leadership, a lot of people are conflating the statements that Joe Rogan is saying is that, everyone on the left, that makes it seem like there were some Democratic officials in Congress or a former president saying something like this. And I just think people online are largely negative. I can tell you about some comments that I got this week. It's like, okay, people are negative, and that's okay. People are individuals who have the right to be fired by their private company. Shall they behave like that? But for me, I can't police online. You don't want policing online. I look at X and I'm like, oh, God, it's a lot of negativity over there. But at the end of the day, it's not doing anything besides just perpetuating what we don't like as the best of society, but it exists. And that doesn't mean, hopefully, that our leaders and people who know better, like Joe Rogan talked about, moms, parents, teachers, we know better. So people should be aware of like what your parents taught you. You don't anything nice to say, maybe don't say it, but we can't police online in that way. So I think when you broad stroke brush it and say that the left is saying all this stuff, it's like, well, these are people that maybe didn't get raised the right way. I can't speak. They don't speak for me. I don't speak for people online that were praising or celebrating a man being killed.
I don't. When you see the widespread negative comments about anything online, what is your feeling for how reflective is that of our society, our fellow?
Well, that's the thing. I know and have the privilege of being friends with independents, conservatives, Democrats, people who don't even vote. You know what I mean? I have a bunch of friends, and none of them started applauding during this. And the conversation has come up in group chats, in personal conversations.
You have friends all over the political spectrum?
Yeah, because of all the places I've worked at this point. You know what I mean? Like, they're all over the political spectrum. But I think that the point is that none of them that I've had dialogue with, because it's been about a month now, have said, oh, like, they're cheering this on. At the very most, they said what Ta-Nehisi Coates said, which was very much, I don't agree with this thing that Charlie Kirk said, this thing, and they have the right to say that.
I mean, there were people cheering it on.
No, there were people, but
saying,
you asked me if I think
you
asked me if I think that that's reflective of my real experience in life. I would hope not, and I don't think so. But when I see echo chamber online, I know that that's created these spaces where you think, well, the whole world is thinking this. Like, for example, if I post my response to you about Assata Shakur on my page, the whole world said, brilliant. If you post it on your page, I'm sure all of them will say, terrible. And so that's just how we live in these echo chambers, and I don't think that represents what most people think. I think the truth is somewhere in the middle of the nuance of the conversation. What do you think?
I don't
think
know.
We're just that negative?
I think social media serves as people's internal monologue, and a lot of people express ideas that they would feel like it's just thoughts, internal thoughts. They don't feel it as something they're saying out loud, even though it is saying something out loud. I mean, sports brings out a nasty side in people, or celebrity spectating, or whatever you're passionate about brings out a nasty side in people sometimes. Doesn't mean you're a nasty person, and our politics increasingly resemble sports and entertainment, and I think that's what's going on. So it's not reflective of people at their core being, I hope. Next up, Vice President J.D. Vance is saying that layoffs are imminent if the government stays shut down. We'll be right back with the latest.
there are essential services that we want to make sure as much as possible they still continue to function. That is the principle that's driving us forward during the shutdown. It's going to continue to be the principle that drives us forward. But let's be honest, if this thing drags on for another few days or God forbid another few weeks, we are going to have to lay people off. We're going to have to save money in some places so the essential services don't get turned off in other places. That is the reality of the government shutdown that Chuck Schumer and the Democrats have foisted upon the administration.
We're officially in day 2 of the federal government shutdown, and Vice President J.D. Vance already hinting that layoffs may be in the future if it continues. It comes as the Trump administration froze $26 billion in funding for Democratic-leaning states, following through on his promise to use the shutdown to target Democratic priorities.
That funding included $18 billion for transit projects in New York, another $8 billion for green energy projects across 16 other states like California and Illinois. Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer, both from New York, have spoken out against this funding freeze as a form of blackmail, saying it would put thousands out of work, and even Republican senators, some of them, have been slow to get on board. North Carolina Senator Tom Tillis told Reuters he was concerned that move could make it harder to exit the shutdown, saying, quote, they need to be really careful with that because they can create a toxic environment here. Hopefully they're working with the leader and the leader with them on not creating more work to get us out of this posture.
But in a rare show of unity amid the shutdown, some members of Congress from both sides are calling for their paychecks to be docked. Representative Eugene Vindman says he will defer his salary for the duration of the shutdown and has introduced a bill blocking members of Congress from getting paid, something Republican Senator Rick Scott says he can get on board with. Wow.
I actually introduced a bill also
Yes.
so members of Congress don't get paid if we can't pass a budget or fund the government. If members of Congress start to feel that pain, then it'll become as real for them as it is for everyday Americans.
I'm a business guy. I always pass budgets. And by the way, if you didn't do your job in business, you didn't get paid. You don't show up and do your job, you don't get paid. Why are we getting paid? We shouldn't get paid if we don't do our job. We need to figure out how to work together to get our budgets done. It's as simple as that.
Well, instead of not paying yourself, you can just get the job done. Meantime, the blame game for the shutdown continues, but it's extended beyond Capitol Hill. Yesterday, Housing and Urban Development posted a large banner on its website that read, quote, the radical left are going to shut down the government and inflict massive pain on the American people unless they get their 1.5 trillion wish list of demands. The Trump administration wants to keep the government open for the American people. That banner has been edited in the hour since, but many are criticizing the move, claiming that it was a violation of the Hatch Act, which imposes limitations on federal employees in order to ensure federal programs are nonpartisan. I mean, J.D. Vance said this isn't political, but this is very political. The firings are not like, oh, just to save money. Like, this would be very political. Everything that he's doing in New York or all the funds they're freezing are specifically to target Democrats. And I don't think that that's a way to solve anything. I think we missed the boat on how to solve this. Was conversation that happened well over a month ago. The new way to solve it, once they do decide to open back up the government, would be to have a long-term conversation about expanding the budget so that we're not having the same dialogue in a few months. Rather, we can extend it for a year, which I know is rare in these times, that we're constantly having this conversation about how to do this over and over again, these CR conversations. So I just would love for them to do their jobs. I think the biggest issue is that Americans are frustrated. And then there are people, because we talked about who's getting the brunt of this. And most people are furloughed, like you said, and will get paid later. But I was looking, and there's some other people that are like hourly workers that are impacted, that do work in federal buildings that are considered federal contractors, like janitors, cafeteria staff, and security guards, that straight up have no guarantees to back pay after the shutdown ends. So they might show up for good merit because the rest of the staff is still there and they want to secure the place or bring food to people that are working on furlough, but there's no guarantee they get their money, which is, to me, like wildly disrespectful to American people that are blue collar trying to work around D.C.
Yeah, them I feel sorry for. It is joy to me the idea of members of Congress not getting paid. That's
a ridiculous solution.
No,
I do appreciate it, I guess.
Here I am. I'm going to say something nice about a Democratic proposal.
Okay, let's listen.
Eugene Vindman. He's a Democrat proposing that. I like this idea to not pay them while the government remains shut down. I think that's a great idea. So kudos to you, Eugene Vindman. I've never said anything nice about somebody whose last name is Vindman before. But that's a great idea.
Do you know a lot of Vindmans?
Well, there was that. He's a Alexander Vindman. Thank you, Louis. That's the guy. He was like a very anti-Trump public official involved in the Ukraine impeachment stuff. If memory serves me. Memory is not serving me today. Brain not working. The other thing, green energy boondoggles getting canceled. Music to my ears as well. So we can cancel all those contracts. That's great. I'm sure that, unfortunately, the funding is going to just resume whenever they decide to fund the government after all, which I am predicting will happen. I hate making predictions because I'm always wrong, but I would guess in the next few days. I don't think this is
we disagree there. I think they're about to drag this thing to the end of time. You know why? Because
they're already,
number one,
their resolve is weakening, they being the Democrat Party.
I think the first thing is that Chuck Schumer has more on the line this time and knows that he did this once of caving before it got to this point. And caving, I don't say that in a way that I agree with it. I'm saying the way that his party is looking at him and the judgment that he's going to receive for not doing anything. And now
he's afraid of your girl. He's afraid of AOC.
AOC, yeah, I know. And so I think with that compounded with the idea that the winning issue for Democrats right now, and which has been for a while, has been health care, health insurance, and all that conversation. So I know the Obamacare site we talked about wasn't the best, but the overall idea is that this is the party that's going to protect your Medicaid and Medicare coverage. This is going to protect your health insurance for longevity,
right? Liked your health insurance plan, and we're going to kick you off it.
But the point is, if you are of that mindset and look at polling, they're doing well with health care, and the Republicans are not doing that well because of the big, beautiful bill and all the repercussions that have yet to be seen. And so I think that they cannot back down on this one issue that they're winning on, especially after an identity has been largely lost about where to go next when Kamala lost the election. Like, they can't just throw their hands in the air. This can be an issue to start the resurgence of, okay, we're standing on business against Republicans, and not just in a way like Newsom, where we're fighting fire with memes. We are literally doing policy things that benefit the people and constituents we go home to, which I think is a valid thing for the Democrats to do, even though I don't like it attached to a shutdown.
It should not be under-discussed how much Schumer's strategy is attempting to keep AOC at bay. There is so much dissatisfaction with leadership. She could primary him in 2028. I think he is truly afraid of that. I watched a clip of her on with Chris Hayes the other day where he asked her point blank, are you planning to primary him? And she was like, well, this is not about me. She did not answer the question directly. Now, I was talking to Niall yesterday, and he said that he thinks she's probably not going to run against Schumer because she's going to just go straight for running for president. Why would she, settle for a lesser, a very tough race for a difficult job when she could run for president? So we'll
President
see if that's the
AOC,
case.
that has a nice ring to it.
No, but it will create a lot of content, and as a content creator, I am enthusiastic
seeing
about
how
the
Bernie
prospect of
Sanders
that run.
did. It was a very lively, spirited time to experience
Did
that.
you see that video of Bernie and AOC hanging? They were probably like right outside, right here. There's a video of them giving their thoughts on the shutdown, walking down the street.
I should have ran downstairs, man. I missed them.
I'm scooting in the background. I'm just zooming past on my way to do our show. Next up, Tim Walz is defending Kamala Harris for criticizing his debate performance in her new book. What a loyal man. Don't go anywhere. We'll discuss.
So Minnesota Governor Tim Walz defended former presidential candidate Kamala Harris for being critical of some Democrats and even of himself in her new book, 107 Days.
Harris was clear in her book that she wasn't too fond of Walz's debate performance against J.D. Vance, writing in part, when Tim fell for it and started nodding and smiling at J.D.'s fake bipartisanship, I moaned to Doug. Moaned? What is happening? I told the television screen, you're not there to make friends with the guy who is attacking your running mate.
Now, Walz addressed this during an interview with the news outlet, Minnesota Post. Let's listen.
As far as the book and things like that go, I think she has every right to be critical. I do think I let her down on a couple things. And I warned them, my Minnesota nice thing is, if somebody's being nice to me, I'll be nice to them.
You're talking about the debate with J.D. Vance where...
Yeah.
Walz expanded on how Vance seemingly caught him off guard by being nice. Here's more.
Honestly, we did not prepare for him to be more cordial. The expectation was that he would do the false attacks and do some of that, and they didn't. So I'll give them this, they were well prepared. And the teacher in me, and this is nervous tick or habit that we have when you're a teacher, when someone else is speaking next to you, you instinctively nod and listen and try and listen. And that was viewed as And the vice president took it that I was agreeing on some of the things that were a personal attack on her, and it wasn't that at all. Because when we're teachers or in any other one, I'm like, that's really interesting. It's dumb as but it's very interesting.
Despite having issues with Walz's performance, however, Harris said she reassured him that the election wouldn't be decided on that debate. She wrote, quote, "In choosing Tim, I thought that as a second-term governor and 12-year congressman, he would know what he was getting into. In hindsight, how could anyone?"
No. This was a really contentious time and a really serious debate. And you went and said, "I'm going to be my nice teacher." Mm-hmm. I'm not accepting this. Mm-hmm. He's the one who said the words like Gestapo, right? We played the soundbite. He's the one who said we're in the worst of times and things like that.
Oh.
You cannot go to a debate and say...
Oh, you're mad at him for being...
Yes. You can't go to a debate and say, oh, Robby was being sweet today. Like, are we debating or not? You could like me all you want. We could shake hands after, we can go get a beer. But if we're trying to articulate a point to save the country that we think is nearing its demise by having President Trump be the president again, this is absurd. I was a nice teacher. I went with my Minnesota roots. Even Minnesota voted for Walz to be the next vice president less than they did vote when Biden was on the ticket. So Kamala Walz got less votes in Minnesota than Joe Biden's ticket.
Yeah,
Kamala.
I was never particularly impressed with Walz as a political candidate. I find the whole "I'm nice, I'm a teacher" kind of shtick a little grating and insincere to me.
Yeah.
I was not impressed by him. Frankly, I think no matter what Kamala says, the reason she picked him was because she did not want to be overshadowed, which is the exact same calculation that Hillary Clinton made when she picked also a kind of forgettable, not particularly talented person named Tim to be her running mate because she didn't want to be upstaged. She wanted the spotlight on her. Kamala did the same thing, and that was a huge mistake.
I thought
not pick a popular governor of one of the must-win states. You had Josh Shapiro or Gretchen Whitmer to choose from as your preference.
Or Mark Kelly.
You could make an argument.
Anybody,
for Mark Kelly.
I was going
somebody in a swing state. Minnesota's not a swing state.
But I thought Josh Shapiro was the right choice. Obviously, that was up for them
Yes.
to decide. But I also said, you can't go off feelings. I thought that Kamala picked him because she said I went with my gut, and like he was if he really is this nice guy. But elections are not about feeling. It's about tact. It's about tactic. It's about what wins. It's about what states you need to get. Who's going to balance some of your perspective, which what they have accomplished over their term. So just the whole strategy. And mind you, her back was against the wall in 107 days. But I think this could have been way more thought out and planned as far as who to choose and why, because you can't cower in a moment like this. Like, oh, he was being nice. Like, that debate made J.D. Vance look very presidential. I can be honest about that. Right. And so when you talk about how Democrats pick people who won't outshine them, well, surely Trump, who's very shiny to most of the world, most people know who he is, picks somebody that's also a star. And J.D. Vance is a star. And you can see by the way he's very outspoken, we know exactly where J.D. Vance is during Trump's entire term. And he's setting himself up for a presidential run. Unlike Kamala was given that opportunity, and unlike J.D. Vance unlike Walz would have been as her vice president. So
100%.
Yeah, we would
totally
agree
with you. How about that? How about that?
Next up in my lens, I'll get into the outrage that exploded after Bad Bunny was announced as the 2026 Super Bowl. You know Bad Bunny, halftime show performer. He's pretending. Stick around.
Time for Lindsey's Lens.
Your favorite segment of the day.
Favorite segment of the day. What's in your lens today?
Bad Bunny, the guy I know you know. So stop
idea.
pretending like you don't know. So
Never heard of her. Go ahead.
The NFL thought it was just announcing a halftime show, but the moment Bad Bunny was revealed as the 2026 Super Bowl performer, conservative outrage exploded. And that says more about America than it does about music. So Bad Bunny isn't just another pop star. Born Benito Antonio Martinez Ocasio, he's a Puerto Rican artist who refuses to assimilate to what power structures demand. He sings in Spanish, he critiques the Trump administration, he defies gender roles, and openly advocates for immigrant communities, all while dominating the global charts. In less than a decade, he's become one of the biggest superstars in the world, rivaling Taylor Swift, Drake, and The Weeknd. The difference, he does it in a language that America often tries to silence. And silence is exactly what Trump world wants. Since they can't cancel his performance outright, they're threatening to weaponize ICE. Corey Lewandowski, an advisor at the Department of Homeland Security, recently said on The Benny Show, quote, "There is nowhere that you can provide safe haven to people in this country illegally, not the Super Bowl and nowhere else." He went on to say, quote, "We will find you, we will apprehend you, and we will put you in a detention facility, and we will deport you." Think about that. A Super Bowl halftime show meant to unite millions is being turned into a staging ground for fear. This isn't the first time Bad Bunny has worried about ICE targeting his fans. Earlier this year, he told ID magazine that he skipped touring the continental U.S. out of concern that Latinos could be vulnerable to raids. That's not paranoia, that's reality. Trump's rhetoric has emboldened people to complain when someone speaks Spanish in public, to sling anti-immigrant slurs, to treat whole communities as a threat. We've seen this before. After Hurricane Maria devastated Puerto Rico in 2017, the U.S. response was slow and dismissive. You'll remember the mayor of Puerto Rico's capital, San Juan, described then-President Donald Trump's visit to the hurricane-hit island as, quote, insulting after he threw paper towels into a crowd at a relief center. Then at a Trump rally last year, a conservative comedian even called Puerto Rico, quote, a floating island of garbage. Bad Bunny didn't clap back with insults. Instead, he posted a stunning tribute to the island, its beauty, its people, its dignity. That's how he fights back, with love, pride, and art. So when critics call him anti-ICE or say he hates America, what they really mean is that he refuses to shrink himself or his culture to make them comfortable. He's proud of his heritage. He carries it onto the biggest stages in the world. Bad Bunny himself put it best when he announced the Super Bowl news. What I'm feeling, quote, goes beyond myself. It's for those who came before me and ran countless yards so I could come in and score a touchdown. This is for my people, my culture, our history. And that's the point. This halftime show isn't just about entertainment. It's a declaration. It's a love letter to Puerto Rico, to Latinos across the Americas, and to Latinos born right here in the United States, because you are American. It's a reminder that you belong here, that you deserve to thrive without being constantly questioned or attacked or criminalized simply because of the way you look or the language you speak. And yet the reality is brutal. Last month, the Supreme Court's conservative majority cleared the way for ICE to profile millions of Spanish speakers in Los Angeles, lifting a restraining order that had barred federal agents from stopping people solely because of their race, their language, their job, or even just where they live. So when Bad Bunny steps onto that Super Bowl stage, it won't be just about music. It'll be a resistance in real time, a performance in the face of policies and prejudice designed to erase Latino identity. And it will also be proof that despite these relentless attacks, millions of Americans are standing beside you, fighting on the right side of history, refusing to let fear define who gets to belong. As podcast host Janice Torres put it, quote, Bad Bunny's career can be summarized in one line. Success does not require you to make yourself palatable to people with no taste buds. So get some taste buds, Robby, and learn who Bad Bunny is, because he's not only one of the best-selling artists of our generation, he just is that amazing. Spanish, English, whatever, his songs are fantastic.
I will escuchen to some Bad Bunny, I suppose. All right, I took a couple notes.
Oh, you took out your notepad.
As I said, my brain is not operating at full capacity this
Okay.
morning. So you referenced the Puerto Rico floating a pile of garbage. That was a comedian making a joke.
So was Jimmy Kimmel.
Puerto Ricans
So
were
was Jimmy
not
Kimmel.
offended by it.
Is Jimmy Kimmel a comedian making a joke that all conservatives were outraged about?
What Kimmel said was inaccurate, and
Is the Puerto Rico a floating island of
that
garbage?
was
Is that
obviously
accurate?
a joke, whereas what Kimmel said was premised on a wrong
No, you can't.
statement
You can't dissect
about
jokes
someone who
if
had,
we're leaving
about a
jokes as
specific
jokes.
person who had
He
just
didn't
been
say Charlie
murdered.
Kirk's name. No, he didn't. He didn't even mention his name.
I don't think it's
he was talking about President Trump.
A little broad.
And he was talking about the
racial
killer
humor.
of-
You know, when they say to me, "Oh, you like a spicy meatball?" Like, I'm not offended by that, so we can do that. It's not the same as.
What does that have to do?
Because I'm Italian.
Okay, got it.
We do a little bit of like,
Got it.
oh, Irish, you must love some potato. Like, it's just whatever. It's the way it goes. I don't think that's a big deal, and neither did Puerto Ricans because they voted for Donald Trump in record numbers. Next, you said that he's going to unite the country, but isn't he a divisive political figure? Isn't he?
No, he's
talking about.
He's fighting for
anti-Trump-
representation. There's a difference between people who are trying to intentionally divide people and people who are trying to unite and say, welcome more. Let's be more understanding of different cultures and languages. Let's not treat Puerto Rico as a non-U.S. territory.
What I think-
Let's not throw paper towels like people are barbarians that don't want the same relief that Americans get when our president.
don't remember the paper towel.
Okay, well, it's 2017 and we just showed a picture of it, so it's true. Okay. Not just making it up.
I didn't say you were making it
President Trump threw paper towels at people that were in dire circumstances and thought that was a good idea. And it was disrespectful and condescending.
Okay. I just mean that I think when liberals say, oh, this is a uniting figure, but then that person has very political rhetoric, I think it's what you think of as uniting is not what we think of as uniting.
Okay, fine. Let's just go off the straight that they said that he doesn't speak English. A lot of conservatives have been like, why are we having... He's not American. He actually is from Puerto Rico, so he is. And there's plenty of non-U.S. citizens that no conservative said a word about. I can go down the list. Coldplay. I can go down the list. Rolling Stones.
Oh, I like.
I didn't hear you guys when they were performing. I can go down the list. Paul McCartney.
I like Coldplay.
Everyone's allowed to perform that's not from the U.S.
Paul
besides
McCartney,
Bad Bunny.
I'm a little over.
Okay, keep
but
going.
I love Coldplay.
You too.
Yeah, they're great.
So why are we not complaining about these non-American?
You know who I really hope wish
and the
would
big
do it?
the gag is that
Creed. I would love to see Creed perform the halftime show. They did a Thanksgiving Day, was it a Lions game, I think? A performance in like 2001. You can find it on YouTube. It's the greatest thing ever.
Okay,
the 90s, we should return.
We have to go
anyway.
to whom the people are calling for.
No, we should just...
Bad Bunny, the world is calling for. He's selling out arenas. He's in his prime of his career. We shouldn't go back to Robby's hit list of the 90s.
Yes, we should. Counterpoint. Two more quick things. You said they're doing the profiling based solely on race. My understanding is, I could be wrong, is that the Supreme Court has cleared them to consider a number of factors. I don't think they can say, oh, you're just Hispanic.
I named it: location, job, language,
all those things. You
right, but
solely because of one of the
if we have a white person who migrated here from Ukraine that's also overstayed their visa, that speaks English and looks to be the tone of a white person, how can you say you're going off of the way they look? So you would say, oh, they just look like a American white person. They speak in English, so okay. So like somebody speaking Spanish, that you're targeting people that are Latino. I know, but those are 2 out of 5 things that they're looking for.
I don't know how many things out of 5 it has to be. Last point, I actually support the most pro-Puerto Rico policy we could possibly have, which would be a repeal of the Jones Act, which is a ridiculous 100-year-old policy that makes shipping more difficult. It's protectionism for U.S. ship manufacturers that makes it more difficult for shipping to stop in Puerto Rico and hurts their economy and makes everything more expensive. We should absolutely repeal that law. It would be great for the people of Puerto Rico. It'd be great for us as consumers in the U.S., and we should do that, and we won't do it because everybody loves protectionism, which is sad. But so lest anyone say I'm like anti-Puerto Rico or something, I'm not. I favor getting rid of a law that harms them in every which way.
But you just don't favor watching Bad Bunny on that Super Bowl stage.
Maybe I'll check. Maybe I'll listen.
You're going to enjoy it. We're going to have you dancing by the time it's over.
I plan to probably sit out the Super Bowl this year, but that's okay. Not because of him, just because not something I like.
It's crazy. Up next, President Trump is getting criticism from all over the place after he signed an executive order to defend Qatar. Stay with us. In the wake of the Israeli strike last month that killed 6 people near Doha and injured several more, President Trump has signed an executive order bolstering U.S. protections of Qatar.
The order states the U.S., quote, shall regard any armed attack on the territory, sovereignty, or critical infrastructure of the state of Qatar as a threat to the peace and security of the United States. The order continues, in the event of such an attack, the United States shall take all lawful and appropriate measures, including diplomatic, economic, and, if necessary, military, to defend the interests of the United States and the state of Qatar and to restore peace and stability.
Now, Trump signed that order while Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was visiting the White House earlier this week. During that visit, Netanyahu did apologize to the Qatari Prime Minister for the strike.
Following the order, many online pointed out the similarities to Article 5 of the NATO treaty, which states an attack on one is an attack on all, and that a show of support for Qatar didn't sit well with many of Trump's supporters. Max Nordau posting to X, quote, by the way, there's no similar guarantee for Israel. American troops have never died for Israel. Are you ready to die for Qatar? Laura Loomer suggested in her own post that Qatari money financed both an Iran-backed attempt on President Trump's life, as well as, quote, radical left communist and Islamist causes on college campuses, writing in part, what about assuring our own safety from Qatar?
Of course, voices from the other side of the aisle were no less critical. Pod Save America host Dan Pfeiffer posting the X, quote, I'm sure this has absolutely nothing to do with the $5 billion golf resort that the Trump family is building in Qatar with the support of a government-backed real estate fund, or the plane that they gifted him. And fellow Obama bro Tommy Vietor chimed in, writing, this is insane. Trump released an executive order saying that any, quote, armed attack on Qatar is a, quote, threat to the peace and security of the United States. The entire concept of, quote, America first and restraining and avoiding foreign wars is dead and buried at this point. That's a lot to unpack. I think, obviously with the Department of War and the way that we attacked Iran in this year and all the many things, the president is not solely focused on America first. A lot of people disagree with some of those actions. But to stay on this exact story, I think that the president has to show some type of response because he maybe has a split base. Partially, people think that Israel should not be telling President Trump what they will and won't do in this situation. And President Trump should be the leader and say what we will and won't do. And so when you see that you were attacking Hamas leaders and were successful in some ways, but then you also killed a Qatari security officer, which was somebody who works for that government that we have an allyship with and have American bases in that country, then you understand that Netanyahu is decidedly ruining diplomatic relationships that the United States has.
If I'm understanding this correctly, while it is, I don't think, America first necessarily to offer some blanket security protection to a foreign nation, we want to be less involved in the affairs of foreign nations, not more, not obligated to participate in some war if they come under attack. So I certainly understand the skepticism. This is not really America first on one hand. On the other hand, it is, if I'm understanding it correctly, it's counter to Israel's interests because they want to reserve the right to blow up Qatar whenever they feel like it. So in some ways, you could argue perhaps that it is an anti-interventionist measure because it makes a war or a conflict between Israel and Qatar, or Israel and the people that Qatar is harboring, less likely because we're committing to defend Qatar. So that means Israel should not attack it. Now, we have not been very good lately at getting Israel not to do things we don't want them to do. We give them money, and that ought to be enough to say, don't attack Qatar because we give you money and we don't want you to. We shouldn't need to put it explicitly in a security agreement to get this state, a client state of ours that we give millions of dollars to, billions of dollars to do what we say. So it's a little unfortunate that this is even necessary. We should just call up Netanyahu and say, you can't do that.
Yeah, we should.
Or no money.
I agree.
Or no more money.
I 100% agree with you, which is why the point's being raised about the fact that Qatar gave him a jet, the president, to put in his presidential library. And he's building a resort there that's going to make him millions, if not billions of dollars, would be the reason why, well, this is the exception to the rule. Israel can do whatever it wants. But here's my exception. When it starts to affect my bottom line personally, then I'm going to start to step in.
I agree. I don't want Israel to attack Qatar.
No, but if the reason is only for personal benefit and interest for making money, well, I don't know. It's confusing because a lot of people would have said that you would have had this conversation with Benjamin Netanyahu months ago, if not years ago. But he's having it now after they've done many different things that we can point to that are saying, okay, this is going a little bit too far. Let's reel it in and talk about what our solution is.
We tell them not to do things.
But now he's making a public announcement when it personally starts to affect. You can find a money trail to his pocketbook. And so you question the interest or the reason about why now. Because remember, the Qatari official said, we gave you that jet. We gave you that jet as a gift.
Why now?
We gave you that jet. We gave you that new Air Force One plane as a gift, no strings attached. Well, the strings are, if anything, go to war for us. Obviously, we're seeing the strings.
They gave him the plane before Israel launched that attack.
I know, but in the future, like Robby, let's say I give you $100 and I'm like, for nothing, don't worry about it. And you see me, something happen to me outside, like somebody's like shoving me around. I expect you to do something about it. I do. I expect you to do something about it. I gave you $100 yesterday. Come help me. Don't walk past.
And if the person
and it's mostly because of the $100.
And the person was shoving you around was my best friend who I bought, night suit thing to camouflage him in the bushes. I'd be like, hey, I told you not to attack Lindsey. You can't attack Lindsey. And now I'm going to make it explicit. Lindsey is under my protection. In case you didn't get it, when I gave you everything I gave you, and I said, and don't attack my other friends, and you did it anyway, so we're being really clear, don't attack Lindsey anymore. That's basically what's happening. And I don't know, they're going to say, well, we'll attack Lindsey. Well, we're not attacking Lindsey unless we feel like it, unless Lindsey's harboring terrorists.
So what's the long-term solution here then?
I don't know.
Because that's kind of the deal. It's like, okay, fine. Even if he did it for personal interest or he did it because he wants to make money and doesn't want to ruin his relationship in the Middle East, both are okay. Right. But it's more of like, now, what are we talking about for long-term solution?
I don't care if he builds Trump land
on the Gaza Strip?
In Qatar.
Oh, I don't really care either. I just was saying, like, if that's the motivation, like, the motivation could also be starving Palestinian people. The motivation could also be that the UN is calling this a genocide. The motivation could be so many things for our president to not say, if Hamas doesn't accept this last deal, I'm giving Israel the right within all of its means to do whatever it wants. That's basically what he said. That motivation could be a lot of things,
Trump
not
is,
just the money that Qatar
right. He said
makes
is the final deal. Trump, I relate to Trump's frustration with both the Israeli government and with Hamas in that, or the representatives of the Palestinians. I relate to his frustration because I am also frustrated by it, because I think, I've said this many, many times, I will just say it again, I think both sides of this conflict are incredibly unreasonable. I think the Israeli government is killing thousands of people unjustly, and it's awful, and we should have nothing to do with it. I can't believe it's still going on. It is unconscionable to me. On the other hand, I can't believe that the leadership of these poor, oppressed people are so indifferent to their suffering and destruction that they're happy to not surrender, even though that there is no future for them at all, and have their people remain in the Stone Ages. And it's just so terrible on both sides. And Trump is saying, okay, enough is enough. You got to come to a deal or whatever. He's just threatening things because he wants them to make a deal.
But no, he's not going to make a deal. So he's like Taco right now. He's not planning on doing anything.
There's not anything we can do.
I know, but you're saying that he's just threatening things with no follow-up. Like he's just saying it to
the
throw
follow-up
out
is
the
going to be
threat.
unleashing Israel to kill even more people in hopes
And then
that
how is that a solution, though? That's what I'm saying.
The hope is that pressures Hamas to reach a deal. But I don't know why more death would persuade them to do that when...
But if you were really trying to reach a deal... and
thousands of children starving doesn't motivate them to say, you know what, we'll take the L on this one and let's move toward a better future.
So if Hamas and Israeli leadership were in Qatar trying to negotiate a deal, and that's the plan, then why would we just come up with our own deal with Benjamin Netanyahu only and then present that to Hamas leadership or whomever the leadership is in the Palestinian area and then present it to them after it's finalized and say, accept this or nothing? That's not how you have the negotiations when we were trying to have them around the world in peaceful places with both parties at the table. Why would you just abort mission and just go with what Netanyahu wants and present it? And then the American public is kind of in the dark, like, well, what's all in here? Why do they keep saying no? Why is... what's the full report? Like, is Israel saying no? There's a lot of that's unclear or murky for everyone. And I think the more transparency in this will maybe make us understand some of President Trump's decisions. Because a lot of people are just confused. Like you said, the main question is, why is this still happening years down the line? Next up, Jimmy Kimmel was on Stephen Colbert's show. And as expected, bashed the president. We'll be right back. Late night host Jimmy Kimmel discussed his suspension and bashed President Trump while on Stephen Colbert's show this week.
Kimmel's show, of course, was temporarily suspended by ABC, Sinclair, and Nexstar, which is the Hill's parent company. Critics accused FCC Chair Brendan Carr of jawboning, and Carr criticized comments made by Kimmel, saying, "We can do this the easy way or the hard way," when it came to taking action on Kimmel.
Now here's Kimmel on Colbert.
Did you ever think the President of the United States would be celebrating your unemployment?
I mean, that son of you know, is... No, I never imagined that we'd ever have a president like this, and I hope we don't ever have another president like this again. I mean, I never even imagined there would ever be a situation in which the president of our country was celebrating hundreds of Americans losing their jobs. There's somebody who took pleasure in that.
On X are pointing to a 2021 CNN town hall where then presidential candidate Joe Biden said that if police officers and other first responders refuse the COVID vaccine, well, they should be let go or forced to stay home. Outkick writer Ian Miller wrote on X, Jimmy Kimmel happily supported Joe Biden trying to force private businesses to fire millions of people for not getting COVID vaccines, even though that didn't stop transmission or infection.
Everything is going to go back to COVID somehow.
Oh, yes.
Let's talk about Epstein.
Oh, yes.
Let's talk about Epstein. Let's go back to both of them.
Well, we can talk
so what do you
about
want? Where release the files, release the Treasury documents.
Okay, but that's not related
the
to...
president should, if President Trump wants to complain about Jimmy Kimmel, he should complain about the Epstein documents.
This is a hypocrisy because Kimmel said we would never celebrate people losing their jobs, and conservatives are saying, but here's an example of Joe Biden celebrating people.
It's a hypocrisy that
jobs.
President Trump said cancel culture is out to get him all the time. Elon Musk said the same thing and offered to pay for people that had gotten fired for writing something on his platform when he first bought X.
I thought that was very noble.
But fine, noble of him and his friend Trump, but then to try to get Jimmy Kimmel off the air for something that he said, that's the same thing as cancel culture. So what are we talking about? We can't be talking about contradictions here.
I don't know that Donald Trump tried to get him off the air.
He celebrated it, I said.
Well, yes, he's allowed to have opinions on things. The thing that was done that was inappropriate was the chair of the FCC, who is in a relevant position to make regulatory decisions, has oversight over mergers and acquisitions. That affects Nexstar, our parent company, can restrict, fine, sanction ABC, other companies. And he said something using language that was very threatening. That was wrong. That was a mistake. And conservatives have criticized it. Ted Cruz criticized it. Dave McCormick criticized it. This is something that
so here we are.
Conservatives are criticizing.
Jimmy Kimmel said people should get fired. Is that the word he used if they don't take the COVID vaccine? President Trump said multiple times that every late night show host should be the words fired. They should be fired. He said you're next after one show gets canceled. He's naming Jimmy Kimmel as up next. He wants people to get fired.
A little different than a person who makes millions and millions and millions of dollars.
His whole staff, he said, of hundreds, does not make millions and millions and millions.
Speak, suffering some consequence for their speech not being appreciated is a little different than the fire truck driver losing his job because the government has decided that a private medical decision that he has made is invalid.
Well, the associate producer and the production assistant that's just out of college and the senior producer, they all lose their jobs. Everybody who does all the technical for one of the biggest shows on ABC, they lose their jobs. He said his staff has hundreds. We don't have the luxury of hundreds. We have a solid staff, and I would be sad if any of them lost their jobs because of something I said, and the president was calling for the whole thing to end.
I'd be sad if we lost anyone from our staff because they're wonderful, talented people.
But it's not just
us. And also
us.
because we put this together with a skeleton crew compared to what Kimmel and Colbert have an army of thousands of people working on their shows that lose money.
My point is that other people are affected by the firings that are everyday
Everyone's
people.
affected by everything, yes.
Yeah, that are everyday people. The same way if you do one-to-one, I'm sure one person got fired for not taking a shot, or one person from Kimmel's staff will be gone. It's both. You don't want the government involved in those type of decisions.
I don't want the government involved in those decisions, particularly the FCC, and I hope they have learned a lesson about that. They got criticism from their own side. Brendan Carr did, and that was a good thing.
I'd like to see Jimmy Kimmel and President Trump go to lunch one day.
Oh,
I think that would be great.
It seems kind of needless, but it would be entertaining, perhaps. Would be the most entertaining thing Kimmel's done in a while. That does it for us on Rising Live. Look out for more exclusive YouTube content coming your way later today. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to Hill's YouTube channel so you never miss any content. And for those of you who like to listen while on the go, we're now available anywhere that you listen to podcasts. See you later.